Ja, und als nächstes begrüßen wir hier sehr hohen politischen Besuch auf der CommCon. Vera Jourová ist die Vizepräsidentin der EU-Kommission für Werte und Transparenz. Und diese Frau hat eine beeindruckende Karriere erst im öffentlichen Sektor ihres Heimatlandes hinter sich und später auch in der Politik gemacht. Dazwischen lag aber ein Monat in Untersuchungshaft. Frau Jourová war fälschlicherweise der Korruption beschuldigt worden. Und das war eine Erfahrung, die sie so geprägt hat, dass sie dann nochmal Jura studiert hat und anschließend als EU-Kommissarin half, EU-Recht entscheidend zu verändern. Zum Beispiel in Form der Datenschutzgrundverordnung DSGVO. Dafür hat sie das Time Magazine im Jahr 2019 zu den 100 Most Influential People of the World of the Year gezählt. Und ihr neuestes Projekt ist der European Media Freedom Act zum Schutz der Freiheit der Medien in Europa. Was es damit auf sich hat, das erzählt sie uns jetzt. Bitte begrüßt mit mir die Vizepräsidentin der EU-Kommission, Věra Jourová. Herzlich willkommen.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I feel the energy in this hall and coming from you to me, and so I really feel I should be as demonic as Steve Jobs presenting some new fantastic technologies. Well, sorry, that's not me. I am here to present what we are inventing in the European Commission to protect the media better in the European Union. And I think it's my task today to present it to you and not to be too long and too boring, and to explain to you why we decided to introduce the law which should protect the media in a stronger way in the European Union. But I have to start on serious note, because now as we speak, we again see the Ukrainian cities under the Russian bombs, and it's horrible what's happening there, together with the poor, innocent Ukrainian citizens. Also the journalists are staying there and doing the absolutely important job for all of us, because we need to get the facts right. We need to know what's happening in the battlefield. And that's why I wanted to start with that by sending our energy also to that place in Europe, and to also, how to say it, not only our thoughts, but also practical support to be sent there. The European Union is providing quite a lot of financial support for the journalists working there. We already released 15 million euro for the protective equipment and shelters and different kinds of assistance. And we are now preparing another 15 million to be paid to help the courageous journalists doing this extremely dangerous job in Ukraine, so that we all know what's happening there. So, yes, this is... Thank you for your reaction. This is well deserved for those who are there. And I was in Ukraine several weeks ago. I was in Lviv at the university, and I spoke to young Ukrainians. And it was such a strong moment for me, because the young people, they were telling me, for the values, for the freedoms, for democracy, for the freedom of speech, for the recognized human dignity, we are ready to die. And I had to believe them, that they are not just pathetic, they are not over-dramatizing that this is the main message for me, that they are ready to die for the values the EU is established on. And I am sometimes sorry that I don't hear the same eagerness in our member states, and from our citizens, also from us politicians, that we forgot to fight for the values in recent years. So just a memory of my stay in Ukraine, and I wanted to share this with you. We believe that among the values we should fight for and protect in the EU belong the freedom of speech and the media as independent strong actors which work for our democracies. And we believe that we have to recognize the importance of media in the EU for our democratic system and to protect the journalists and media sector as well. And unfortunately, we saw killed journalists in the EU. We had more than 900 injured journalists in 2020 in 22 member states of the EU. And we see political pressure on media, especially the public service media, the attempts to starve out the public service media in some member states, or to establish, instead of public service media, the state media or party media. I speak about the EU, so this is not something we see from abroad. We see state or public advertising, which is hidden, the public money going to some media who then have to pay back with friendly articles. And we see some very dangerous transactions on the media market, which might result in concentration of media in the hands of those who don't only want to have economic power also, but also political power at the same time. And so all these things, these negative trends cover a big part of the EU. And so when I was in 2 years ago or 1 year ago, when I was repeatedly asked, what will you do about that? You are Commissioner for Values, so what's the action foreseen? How will you react on shrinking space for independent media in Hungary? How will you react on some state decisions which are negatively affecting the media sector in Poland? What will you do? And I had to repeat many times, I cannot do anything. We do not have the European media law. And then one day I said in the European Parliament, well, high time we have such law. And that's why we started to work on the law. I never worked on something like that. I am not a former journalist. You heard my CV before. There is nothing like that. That's why I had to learn a lot. And we were consulting with my team heavily, also with the German representatives of the Länder. I see Heiko Raab here. We were very often on the phone or on Skype. I consulted all over Europe because I knew that the media law is important, is in my view necessary, but it must not be a mistake. And the biggest mistake would be that by this media law we decrease the safeguards for the media in the countries where the safeguards are high. And this is the case, obviously the case of Germany. And so vice versa, we want to take the countries where the safeguards are high to help us to introduce such robust system in the member states where the situation of media is fragile or even endangered. And I promised that not only to Madame Raab, I promised it to the media sector in the whole Europe, and I promised it to myself, that this media law has to improve the situation everywhere in the EU. I still have 2 minutes to explain what's in it. So, safeguards to protect the editorial independence against surveillance and against interference from the side of the state. In other words, state politics must be as distant as possible from the media. Clear standards for the public service media regarding funding, sufficient predictable funding and transparent appointments of the key figures, transparency of media ownership, allocation of state advertising. Then we are establishing the network of media independent regulators who could take collective opinions on European level in concrete cases which are clearly enumerated or described in the law. We want to introduce stronger protection of the recognized media and their content against the moderation from the side of platforms like Meta and Google and others. This is very, very short. I still have 52 seconds. What will happen when it's over? Who will do what to me? Now, I still want to tell you what are the predicted reactions from the member states. We hear criticism from Germany, also from Austria, because the system in those countries is very well functioning, so they fear of worsening of their system, which I said will not happen. We hear some still silent criticism from the member states for which this is uncomfortable thing. I already heard criticism from Hungarian parliament that the EU doesn't have competence to interfere into the national media market. But on the other hand, I heard a lot of encouragement from the countries where they can imagine that the politics could go mad and that there might be one day the new governors who will think that they have mandates from the gods and that they can just capture the space, which must remain independent. And we see the signs of this in the EU. It doesn't need too much fantasy. When you look at what happened in the United States in January 2020, when we see the result of the French presidential elections, Marine Le Pen having over 40%, when we see some signs of growing powers who might have the appetite to apply after the elections the principle that the winner takes all, from these countries where they can imagine that it might happen, I hear it will be good to have some safety net at European level. It would be good to have some chance to refer to the EU law, which might guarantee the protection of the media in our state. So we are at the beginning of the process of negotiations. I am ready to fight for this media law because I believe we need it. At the same time, I am ready to listen, to hear the comments, and to maybe modify some details and some parts of the media law so that it fits better the purpose. So I still have some very nice words at the end. I will skip them, okay? Because the main thing is to thank you for your attention and thank the organizers for inviting me. For me, this is extremely important to come to such events and to absorb the ideas and the atmosphere. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Věra Jourová.